Welcome to the Turnaround Podcast with your host, Stephen Phillips. In each episode, Stephen speaks to experienced practitioners who discuss their careers, key moments, challenges, and lessons learned in financial turnarounds and business restructuring. Join us as we unravel the secrets to turning struggling businesses into success stories. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, freilibertas.com. Now, here's the host of the Turnaround Podcast, Stephen Phillips.
Today we welcome Janka Krings-Klebe and Jörg Schreiner to the show. Janka and Jörg are experienced organizational coaches. They have led major transformation initiatives in international corporations, including Bosch. As co-founder of CoShift, they have developed executive programs focused on digital and agile management. They support companies in developing, repurposing, and scaling their existing capabilities to build long-term adaptability. They educate and prepare a new generation of managers to better deal with dynamic and complex transformation initiatives. I came across them as a result of a book they have just written, The Anti-Fragile Organization, which has just come out and is available on all good bookshops. The book builds on themes of the famous Nicholas Taleb book, Anti-Fragile, which discusses that anti-fragile systems actually strengthen from stress. I'm thrilled to have them here to share their insights and experiences with us. Janka and Jörg, welcome to the Turnaround Podcast.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm delighted. It's a little bit different compared to my normal podcast guests. Many of those kind of guests tend to be in finance and in things like liquidation. This is a different type of transformation we're talking about, and I'm so glad that I'm going to widen my repertoire with talking to you. But before we get into the substance, do you mind just giving the audience a little bit of a background about yourselves?
Yeah, of course. So my background is not in finance, but in engineering. So I'm a mechanical engineer from my studies, and I also studied organizational development. What's a kind of bit weird for engineering and also for organizational development. I spent many years at Bosch in different positions and also in different divisions. So not always automotive, it was also on special engineering and stuff like that. I have designed and lead digital transformation programs across international divisions. And over the time, I realized that transformation wasn't just about strategy or technology. It was about changing how organizations learn and evolve. And that's what led me to co-found CoShift together with Jörg.
Yes, and my path also has been in engineering and electrical engineering, but I never worked in that field. I have been active in software development, in agile management, in organizational diagnostics, business process management, and systems thinking, where all this led to. And I've always been fascinated by how companies respond to volatility. And at CoShift, we focus on helping organizations develop the internal capacity to grow stronger through change, leaving the pitfalls of these early digitalization efforts behind.
And I think I'm right in saying, so you were actually part of a company, you were both employees and were doing, operational stuff when you're at your companies. Is that right?
Yes, that's where we met us at a big transformation project. And it was really funny because we are the same age. We grew up in the same city in Germany, and but we never met before, despite being really working together for so many years for the same company.
Yeah, we even studied at the same university.
Okay, and then you came together, which is lovely. So you came together in this thing called Co-Shift, which is your vehicle for delivering your service. Can you just explain how you currently work with companies? We'll get into the anti-fragile thing later, but how do you currently work? What are the kind of projects you work on?
It's mainly we start with education. So we have a run of the usual stuff like seminars and speakings, but that's where we meet our later clients. That they first attend our seminars and then they think, oh, well, that's something we haven't heard yet, and it's important. That's exactly what we need, and then we get into closer contact with them. And usually, when we work with them, we need to understand their situation and the strategic challenges they are facing, because we always look from the strategic level and then down to operations, where we are very strong in operations. But without understanding the strategic level and the goals there and what barriers they face there, it's hopeless to go into operations prematurely. It won't work.
Yeah, and obviously my program is called the Turnaround Podcast, and it really has focused traditionally on over the last year or so on real financial stress. Now, we have some people on the program who've said, well, you need to get me involved, months before anything really bad happens. Would you say that people give you a call because there's a stress point, because there's a problem, or actually will they just call you naturally, even if there's no particular issue within a company?
No, usually they need to be ready for a change, or sometimes they felt they need to change. They need changes in the company, but couldn't name it.
Yeah.
And then after a seminar or a speech, they found a trigger point. And then they are ready to listen to us, and that is usually the starting point.
Yeah.
So what is? Yeah, sorry, Jörg, to cut you off there, but I'm just trying to get an example of the kind of. It seems like there's a kind of thing in the back of your client's head that there's something that's needed, something's going wrong, or something. There's a big change coming. What are the kind of actual concrete points that have driven this kind of, let's give these guys a call?
Okay, it's different things. But if they see that operations are slowing down, that margins keep eroding over several years, and despite all their efforts, they keep eroding, usually it means that they rethink their business model a little bit, and they should at least. But if that doesn't work, if rethinking the strategy and doesn't work because your operations are not really ready for something new, that's harder to diagnose. Yes, you can have, and that's usually where a disconnect happens between the strategic and the operations management level, and that disconnect is usually very well hidden, and middle managers are not likely to step up and say, hey, we can't do this. What do you expect from us? More often they say, yeah, of course we try our best, but it's not working, because what they can do just isn't sufficient if you really want to do a completely strategic shift. You need upper level management involved in this all the time, and you need these two levels to connect with the people at the ground who need to then implement the strategies.
So what are the common themes that you're seeing in terms of the troubles companies are in, or the themes around why they need to change?
Okay, why they need to change in these days is quite obvious, mostly because they are losing market shares. They feel they are too slow or not innovative enough, or they feel that the employees are unsatisfied because of this overburdening bureaucracy. Sometimes they even realize we are too slow. We need to speed up, but they then find out that just doing another efficiency round and another one on and on and on won't make them faster.
Yeah, it's like if you look at current AI developments, it's crazy how fast this technology is being adopted. People try to adopt it at least. What they usually do is they try to implement it to drive their efficiency higher. But that means just making more automation in the same old capabilities that you had before. So it's a race of improving that capabilities that you're already strong in, and to often just to lay off more people to get a cost benefit over other competitors. And that's not sufficient, because you won't step out of the game of the competitive race in this way, because the others have the same technology available. And who wins this race is the one who has, well, maybe more financial background or is faster at learning. But if you would be able to have different options than your competition, that would be get you out of this race.
And what we also see very often is this problem with those best practices. So many managers went to Silicon Valley and they came up with design thinking and free coffee and innovation labs. And sometime later they found out they are not bringing that profit they thought it would bring just by copy and pasting a method. And so many companies, they just throw every trendy method to a problem, and maybe agile or design thinking or others, and all at once. And that's okay to use a certain method if it fits, but they never change how decisions are made. They never change how priorities are set. They never change the system or the operating model.
Yeah, and they don't develop new options.
And they just try to become better by just giving it a new cover, but still the operation system is the same old.
And I've struck reading your book that you talk about a couple of companies like Nokia, BlackBerry, who presumably must have got into the same mindset of let's just do the same thing, let's just refine our little products, keep it the same, and then suddenly they're run over by a bus.
That's and it's perfectly normal. Yes, if your income and your
if your predominant business has developed it, you're no longer a startup, you're a mature company, and you have your predominant business that rules everything in your company, because that is where you make your profits with. And then over time everything is streamlined to efficiently serve this predominant business model.
Yeah.
The problem is you unlearn the rest.
Can we just get into your big theme, therefore? So we've set the scene of, here are some of the problems. Here's an example of a couple of companies that just got, smashed by something new. What is the big theme of the anti-fragile organization?
The big theme is it is not another book about frameworks, best practices. It came from the need our students, the visitors of our seminars had. They came up asking again and again to find a kind of field guide. And so we wrote this book because we saw the same pattern again and again and again. Yeah. Ambitious companies trying to transform, but running into the same barriers again and again and again. And this is okay if it happens the first time, but being for so long in this business, and you see companies again and again struggle with the same problems, you say, no, that can't, you need to change that.
What these companies on a strategic level, what they do differently is they keep evolving new capabilities, and they getting better at learning new skills and capabilities. And then if they're already very, very, very good at this, then they don't even try to develop all the capabilities that they would need for themselves. They start sharing these capabilities that they're very good at with other companies and get their capabilities in return. So that's they try to cultivate and grow into ecosystems. And that's a completely different mindset that you need there, because in an ecosystem, winner takes all doesn't work. That's true for
this is just so I understand, this development of an ecosystem is part of your viewpoint, part of what you think companies should be doing as part of their anti-fragile strategy.
In the end, yes.
Yes. It's not. You won't start with, I want to become an anti-fragile ecosystem.
Yeah.
Where you start with is becoming anti-fragile. In regard of being adaptable to the changes in your market. And over time, when you have established certain capabilities, then you are able to open up the company borders. So this is an evolution. It's not like a project with a clear start and a clear end. You need to be mature enough to open your borders and to be able to collaborate with other companies. And then you can, over time, become an ecosystem.
So let's get practical in terms of the steps that you're saying to, a company comes to you and said, I need to, I've read your book, need to be a little bit, I see what you're saying about anti-fragile. What are the, are there sort of 4 or 5 sort of steps that you would say to the company, look, these are the practical steps you need to take over, a specific course, 6 months, 9 months, a year. These are the things that I advise you to start thinking about.
It's hard to say, because it always depends on the company itself, how it's currently looking and structured and what its pain points are. But usually we need 2 or 3 interviews, just normal conversations like we have now, to get a good feeling about where the challenges seem to be. And that's then where we start making this these challenges or perceived challenges a topic of leadership retreats and workshops, and we try to show them where they are disconnected currently and why this is a barrier for them moving forward. And it can be very different things, yes. But in Germany, it's mostly the crazy bureaucracy that we have coming from the top of administration and our government and EU. But it's not. It doesn't stop there. It's also in the companies themselves. It's such a risk-averse mentality that they try to control and regulate everything that's could possibly happen in advance, that really keeps you from looking at real and new challenges.
And yeah, I mean, what I get from the book is you've alluded to this, the bureaucracy point is to try and bring the customer and the people sort of delivering the services or the product really close together. So are you really sort of saying, look, you've just got to get rid of quite a lot of layers of management? Is that really?
That depends on that really depends. It depends on what we found out in for several times is that when you start with getting closer to your customer or customer needs, and then you may start with one of our clients. We started with a project where the customer really challenged the company. The customer asked for products in half the time the company usually would have delivered them, and but the company decided to make this happen because it said, well, that's a great idea or a great setting to test where our bureaucracy holds us back. And so they started, and then they ran against barriers again, and but they could identify those barriers and remove them step by step. And so they found out what was holding them back from their business processes, from their governance, from the way how they worked in their silos.
Yeah, that's typical. Typically, projects, if they face a bureaucracy, a barrier, they try to work around it. That's just to get forward. But that's good, but it's
not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, and the next project will run into the same problems. So why not surface these barriers and then start removing them instead of working around them?
Okay,
that's the basic idea. Yeah,
got it. And I think the other thing we talked about as we prepared this is the taking of more bets, the taking of more risks, the sort of almost like creating a skunk works, as it were, within your own company. In other words, just like having a lot more possibilities out there, a bit like Taleb's, Nicholas Taleb sort of had this sort of hedge fund where he had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of options, many of which, didn't transpire into anything, but some really, did very well. Maybe you can expand on that theme.
Yeah, it's in today's world or in today's market, you have customers that are interconnected via technology. You have competitors popping up suddenly. You have markets that are very dense and hyperdynamic, so you can't predict where the next big thing is. So betting your farm on one product is kind of insane, or just keeps you alive for a limited time, because it's not only that you have this dynamic, your product life cycle is also shrinking because the competition is so high. So competitors will come up with similar products very soon. So optionality is what changes the game. So you need to go in with different options of maybe products or services to stay in the game. So always sensing very early signs in the market and go for them, testing whether a potential product matches the market, matches the customer needs, and then go in for that. And by having the profits from the established products. But the real difference is from the stable market we had in the past to now that we can no longer predict the markets. We no longer have the seller markets. We have markets where the customers decide what they buy and what they won't buy.
Yeah, and on an operations level, it's also very, very different, these companies. And maybe that's the more interesting part, even if you want to transform your company into one, because usually you're in this single mature business that you run, you need to have efficiency. But how much efficiency do you have? And we have seen companies who have really driven efficiency that high that they had no resources left for innovation. Yes. And what these anti-fragile companies do is they deliberately avoid this trap. They always have more resources than they need, and these extra resources, they are available for innovation, but also if customers or emergencies demand that you react very, very fast.
What they also do, they speed up their internal procedures, like annual budgeting. They don't do annual budgeting. This is not a rule of nature that you have to do an annual budgeting plan. You can do that 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a year, depending on how fast your market moves. And as you have said, if you don't dedicate all your money into one product, then you have options. Then you can move. You have those select resources. So you are able to act. And you don't have to wait for the next budget cycle.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to work out what you say to, CEOs at a very practical level as to how you can speed up that cycle of innovation and the cycle of sort of going to market and sending some signals and little testing. How does that work practically? I mean, if you're, Tim Cook and you've got an iPhone, I mean, you kind of have to sell your iPhones, but how do you signal that there's other products, and how do you get those products without sort of diluting some of the original messaging of, well, this is my key product?
Yeah, maybe you can't do it without diluting it, your main product line. Maybe it's not possible. But maybe it's also not bad. Yes, if you just can position yourselves in other markets fast enough, then you might be able to shrug it off.
And by not acting, you're not preventing any competitor to diluting your business. So,
and I guess what do you say to companies that have got a very big legacy product, service, etc., that is spinning out cash, but they can also see, well, in a period of time it's going to disappear, but at the same time, like if you happen to be the CEO of Shell or BP or any of the big oil majors, you're being told all the time by your shareholders, just spin out the cash, just keep on going. Don't waste your money on innovation. I mean, that's a difficult thing to be able to sort of wrestle with. How do you say to these CEOs, like, you need to do something else?
So before Jörg answers with a serious answer, a quote from Peter Drucker came up to my mind immediately as you asked your question. Peter Drucker said, the good thing about companies is they can die. If they lose relevance in the market, they die. Institutions can't die. Government won't die. But companies are able to die. So
that's good, because it makes room for something new to grow.
Yeah. So now the serious answer.
I wish the people would come to us if they are still financially strong and sound. But most of them, like you asked earlier, they really need this. They need to feel pain somewhere before they start asking questions if it's really everything so good.
Yeah. But I think that's also same what you may experience in turnaround and management. There's a time when the company has enough money and enough time and resources to act strategically, but then they think, well, it's not that bad at the moment, we don't need to change. But when the need for change is there, the money has gone elsewhere.
So now you're in a pickle, because you don't have the options anymore to grow new options. Yes, that's where you come in with your business of turnaround. Try to save one part that still has a future. Yes. But we try
to prevent that.
To prevent that. Yes, we try to get people to think about growing more options before they ever run into this calamity. But yes, the problem is with owners, like you said. If owners want their investments back, their investment money, and they pressure the CEOs and all others to deliver their profits, yes, that's a problem. Because if every penny that you give to investors or owners is a penny that's missing for innovation and building of new options. Of course.
Yeah, I'm conscious you referred in your in the book to Joseph Schumpeter, and his concept was really he talked about creative destruction, the idea that actually things going bad, that actually that creates the impetus to change things, and actually, if a company goes insolvent, actually, is that not a bad thing because something else goes in its place? And I think in the last few years, governments have spent a lot of effort with their low interest rate policies, with quantitative easing, and they've really tried to disrupt the destructive, the destruction and the insolvencies and the restructurings. Do you think that we're actually the governments have kind of run out the road, and that we're probably, particularly with technology as well as interest rates, etc., do you think we're going into a bit of a phase of creative disruption and the need to really accelerate, and that we've had a period where people have been able to get away with just sort of poodling along, but now things need to change? Do you think this is now the moment to change?
Yeah. We can no longer afford an equilibrium.
Absolutely, because things are now changing so fast with AI and other globalization issues that we run into, and wars everywhere erupting, and strategic partnerships dissolving. And that's the point in time where you now have the chance to really think about your structures and your long-term goals, because you now know for sure that in carrying on as before won't get you anywhere.
Yeah. Now, it does occur to me, looking at creative destruction and the kind of pressures, that Germany is probably experiencing this pressure almost more than anyone else. Maybe because you've got more manufacturing than many of your neighbours, including the UK. Are you seeing this particularly in Germany, or you think that actually, this is just a wider issue for everyone?
It's a wider issue. I would say there are some specific parts that are in Germany like that. We are very dependent on industrial engineering and manufacturing, and only for two sectors of the economy like ours, and that's where the Chinese are taking away our lunch now, and the other is industrial machining, and there's the Chinese too are now taking away some part of our lunch because they have developed these capabilities of industrial engineering very, very faster than Germany or the people who did joint ventures in China ever imagined. But that's only the German problem. Others have other problems. The America is trying to get manufacturing back, yes, but they have already lost all capabilities, even the capabilities to teach this stuff.
Yeah. Are you also? I think we've talked a lot about just companies, but do you think your ideas have a wider application? Are there certain governments, trust funds or charities, universities, etc.? Does this have a wider application, or are your views really mainly centered around private companies?
It's mainly about private companies, but it's also applicable to government agencies or what's it called, the non-profits, for instance, because they all have to work in complex scenarios where the needs change very often, and they can't afford to fix their limited resources for a long time to only one scenario or problem. They need to be able to switch the resources fast and to get collective intelligence in their organizations flowing more smoothly.
And I would add, it is also kind of interesting for government, as you have lots of innovation and initiatives financed by the country here in Germany, or your region. So they set up innovation hubs or innovation clusters, and so they see themselves in a kind of facilitating role, but also giving some money to kickstart it. And just yesterday, I had this conversation with Winfried Kretschmann, who is Minister President of Baden-Württemberg, and he told me he is so often in discussions with CEOs from different industries, from different companies, and he is really trying to bring them together, because that was the discussion point we had yesterday. He is quite aware of that. Not one has all the answer. We can only manage to get innovation kickstarted again when we work together.
Yeah. Can I? Yeah. Sorry, you carry on.
So that's maybe the question is, if you're a government agency and you have innovation funds available, and where do you spend them? Do you spend them on products or technology, or maybe you could also invest them in the connective infrastructure that you need to get innovation to boost innovation across companies in a much better way. And that's currently missing. There is no such infrastructure, but there certainly would be opportunities there to develop protocols for IP sharing and profit sharing and risk sharing that is sort of standardized across companies, across ecosystems, and this lays really the groundwork for innovation ecosystems.
Got it. Can you give an example of something you worked on, or an example of you seeing a company that has gone through this kind of transformation process, and you think, well, yeah, they kind of got that right?
Yes. I'm thinking about a special client we have. It's a long-term project that started with what looked like a very specific challenge, the safety compliance and in engineering case. That was really a funny start on a very far away topic. So the client, a large industrial company, asked us to create a series of e-learning just to help the engineers to understand safety standards in complex product development. That was supposed to be the whole project. So just give us some e-learnings on this special topic.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do what we usually do, but we had some acquaintances, and we were the only engineers that she knew, and she knew that we had this knowledge, but then we said, okay, we'll do it. But as we went deeper into this project, it became clear that the real issue wasn't just knowledge about safety engineering. It was the system of engineering itself that this corporation used, and the engineering processes they had weren't built for collaboration. They were siloed, they were opaque, and it was made difficult to share safety relevant information quickly between departments. So to fix this, we joined a broader transformation effort to redesign these processes of in the engineering. And
that was a point when we started uncovering the real bottlenecks. So the corporate engineering and design system was not broken, but it was weird, siloed. It was a patchwork of legacy tools and workflows. They didn't have a shared architecture. They didn't have a common logic. They had no reliable place to find basic information. So really a mess.
Yeah, they didn't. They even had different names for the different things, for the same things. Sorry, and people still relied on email to coordinate critical work. And collaboration across departments only worked if upper management personally intervened and pushed things through.
Of course, never scales.
Yeah. This middle management wasn't incentivized to collaborate, and in some cases, they, or more often than not, they just simulated collaborating, telling bosses, "Yeah, we'll do it," and afterwards, and nothing happened. On paper, it looked like progress, but in reality, the system was failing, and no one in middle management was even aware how quickly it was failing.
Yeah, and the turning point was when we helped them to shift the focus from these individual tools and engineering processes to the governance logic behind them. And together with them, we could co-develop a flexible process architecture. And that enabled cross-functional collaboration, what they never had before.
Yeah.
And so without having to route every change through centralized controls and middle management approval change, that was a huge benefit for the people.
Yeah, the result was a better alignment and faster decision-making and more ownership on the ground. Yes, and that's also many of these topics evolved around data governance and naming the things in the same way so that people could really understand each other across departments. And we're now helping them learn that scaling of operational governance and connect teams across the organization so these improvements don't stay isolated.
Great. Well, look, it does sound like a brilliant transformation, and I love the fact that you started with a e-learning mandate and expanded it. So, like all good consultants, you've done a good job, but also it sounds like you got fully involved. One last question, really, before we finish, which is just, what is the future of business and your ideas? I mean, you've started this. How do you think technology is going to sort of really affect how we do business in the future?
I think the future will
big question.
It's a big question, but I think it will belong to businesses or organization, broader speaking, that can continuously adapt to new situations very fast and in a way that makes it possible to share the benefits across a wider audience of stakeholders. Currently, there are only the owners profit the most, yes, and all others share the burden. Okay, they also don't share the risk that much, but if you lose your employment, that's also some kind of risk taking. So we would like to see this more evenly shared, risk and opportunities, and that would be beneficial, we think, not only because it gets you out of some competitive races, but it would also be more sustainable. We think it might decrease the race to compete about resources, scarce resources that all need and also future generations would need.
Great. Okay, well, look, I think you've given some great insights on your book. Obviously, I'm suggesting to everyone go out and buy it. And I'm going to finish with a quote that you came up with in your book from Sun Tzu, which is, in the midst of chaos, there is opportunity. So good luck with the opportunities that you find yourselves in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
You've been tuning in to the Turnaround podcast with your host, Stephen Phillips. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, freilibertas.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.